Hello, and welcome to our SURF presentation. Our presentation will be on using Six Sigma to prevent duplicate medical record requests at Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our group members and presenters of this presentation are Anthony, Jessica, Nolan, Nick, and myself, Jason. The Six Sigma DMAIC methodology, the letters are an acronym for the 6 phases of the Six Sigma improvement. Starting with D and working our way to C, we have define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Here in the center of the slide, we can see a funnel type diagram illustrating the methodology and how through this process, we hone in on the main issues that we need to fix in order to solve our problem. In our case, it is preventing duplicate medical record requests at Blue Cross Blue Shield. Starting off the project, we need to define the project. This is where our team decides on the scope, goals, financial and performance targets for the project. Our project description can be summed up with the problem that needs to be fixed, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield currently receives duplicate medical record requests. Our goal for the project is to discover the cause and attempt to eliminate duplication of medical record requests. We state this with a mathematical function to help us through our process and reach our goal. That function can be seen highlighted in purple on this slide. Our problem, or the Y, is duplicate medical record requests, is a function of our X variables, or the causes, which are communication issues, contract language, and standard operating procedures. After we have agreed upon the scope, goals, and financial performance targets for the project, we can then start working on the charter. This is where we keep track of the problem statement, who the key stakeholders are in the project, list of team members working on the project, the financial impact to the business, the goal statement, where we verify the project scope, and keep track of the project plan, which shows the targeted completion date for the project and intermediate milestones. Here we can see the project objectives for our project, their current baselines, our goals for the objectives, as well as the units in which we measure them. Thank you, and now I'll be passing the presentation over to Nolan.
So this is our process map. We formulated our process map by sitting down with the clients and asking them, okay, walk us through your process of receiving and sending a request. And we came up with this, as you can see at the graphic. We then end up taking these inputs and outputs that were formulated from this process and would take them over to the C&E matrix. And at this point, we had, I believe, 18 X variables, as it says on the screen. Next, we have the KJ analysis. And the KJ analysis is really supposed to help us make sure we don't miss anything that could be an issue that wasn't covered in the process map. Normally, Dr. Dimian would remind us throughout our classes this year that normally if we were in person, we would actually be in a room with sticky notes and we'd put them against the wall. And that's kind of the in-person method of doing a KJ analysis, but we're not in person, so we did it on Excel. And what we did was we took black level data, which the black level data came from a question that we asked the Blue Cross Blue Shield team when we sat down with them. And then the question was, what are the issues causing duplicate medical requests? And that question formulated the black level data. And from there, we built upwards and we got our red level data from the black level. And the red level really is like a theme within the black level. So that's how we got our red level. Then our blue level we got from our red level, and it's basically the same thing as what the red level does for the black level, but it's an overarching theme amongst the red levels. So our blue levels are company and communication and requests. And then you have this picture built after we have determined our blue level data. We also, like I said earlier, this is to make sure that we don't miss anything from in the process, so or that could be causing issues. So this all the black level data on this will go over into the C&E matrix. So that's where we're going to head next.
So the C&E matrix is part of the measure phase of the DMAIC method. And so what we did is we took process inputs from the process map and we looked at them in comparison to different aspects of the medical record request process. And from there, the C&E matrix produced 41 X variables. Pareto diagram of the C&E matrix. So from those 41 variables, we found 12 critical X's, and those are outlined there in that red box. So we took these 12 highest rated variables into account going forward in our DMAIC process. So the FMEA is the failure modes and effects matrix. We again took different variables from the process map as well as the KJ analysis, and we took these and put them into the FMEA, and we looked at the process inputs, the different failure and effects of these on the medical record request process, and our FMEA produced 48 X variables. And we also looked at the different causes of these failure and effects, and we determined that communication, whether it was a lack of communication or just poor communication in general, and then contract language from our third-party clients, and then standard operating procedures. And these three components were taken from the FMEA as some of the main causes of duplicate medical records requests. And a Pareto diagram of the FMEA. So we again found 12 critical variables of the 48 of our X variables, and we took these high variables into account, as well as those three components of communication, contracts, and standard operating procedures to move forward and create our solutions. And now I will pass it on to Nolan. He will talk more about the analyze phase.
So this is our fishbone diagram, and we came up after going through the entire process that we've gone through so far. We came up with three main things that can be approved in the process for Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they were communication, standard operating procedures, and contracts. Those were the three big categories. Within those, we had a bunch of X data that supported those, and those would be like the poor and summarization of for communication, a summarization of that was poor or lacking altogether. Standard operating procedure, they were lacking clarity. In contracts, they were lacking specific language that was in the contracts. And then and all of those issues led to our duplicate medical requests. So those are and like it says here on the bottom, our three main areas are communication, SOP, standard operating procedures, and contracts.
All right. Well, thank you, Nolan. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the tests that we ran through our software program called Minitab. So the first one that we ran the data through was a one sample t-test. This is the first of the results I'm going to share with you all. So we have a histogram right here. You can see it's labeled at the bottom, 2, 4, 6, 8. And so that represents the number of requests, whether it's 2 requests, 3 requests, and so on. And then that y-axis is the frequency of it. So how many thousands of times that we get that many requests. So what we've got circled here is the number of medical requests that are duplicates, and so anything greater than 1 in our eyes is a duplicate. So you can see there's a pretty big chunk of 2, 3, 4, and then the rest kind of taper off and tail off. But after we counted all of the results that we got, we were able to find out that 36% of our medical record requests are duplicates, at least from the data that we've got so far. And that is a pretty significant number. Obviously, they're trying to keep it at a pretty low frequency, and 36% is kind of a glaring defect. So we're definitely looking at improving that. And along with this sample t-test, we have a mean of 1.56, and that's the mean of the duplicate record requests per client. And our baseline is 1. That's our goal, so that's definitely a little high. And to make sure that this is actually significant, we have our, let me move this camera for you so you can see that. So in order to figure out if this is significant or not, we do have a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. And so in words, our null hypothesis is that the number of requests is equal to 1. And the alternative hypothesis is that the number of requests is not equal to 1. We got a p-value of 0, which is definitely low. And so with a low p-value, we can toss the null hypothesis and accept the alternative so that the number of requests is not equal to 1. With that, it shows that this 1.56 mean is statistically significant and is important going forward. All right, and then we also ran it through a capability study. And so you can see where the LSL and USL, the red dots that are going down the bar or going down the graph, that represents our lower spec limits and upper spec limits. And as you can tell, it trails off to the right quite a bit. And when we see that, we know that this is not a capable process. We have a lot of defects. It's not within the upper and lower spec limits. So definitely this process of getting medical record requests is something that needs our attention and needs to be addressed by the team. So after running all of these tests, we have found that, first of all, that this is actually a process that does need some improvement, and we can prove that statistically through all the tests that we've run through Minitab, and we could run more data through it in the future, but with the data that we've got, this is what we can conclude so far. So we know that there is a significant amount of duplicate record requests, and that is 36%. It's a pretty big number. And with all this, it's currently based on 1 record request being the baseline that we're aiming at. And we know that the process is unstable and not capable. And so after these define, measure, and analyze phases that we've gone through, we're heading into the improve and control phases, which I will let Nick talk about.
All right, thanks, Anthony, for wrapping that up. So next up is just what remains in the process. So we still have to go through the improve phase and the control phase. So with this, we're looking at the Pew matrix and the Kano survey, along with some other studies. So first, we want to implement standard operating procedures, or SOPs, and add clear contract language. And we have started the improve phase by beginning our DOE, or design of experience. So our DOE is done to understand how our X variables affect our Y variables, which to restate again is our medical record duplicate requests. So with that, we want to understand how our X variables, the communication with Microsoft Teams, and our contract language affects whether or not we are still getting duplicate medical requests. So with this, it's very crucial that we create a plan to track the data for this to make sure these experiments are relevant and are accurate. So next up is our improve phase. So we're looking at our standard operating procedures. So first of all, we want to implement Microsoft Teams. First of all, with this is just to improve the communication across the company. Let us know if a certain area of the company or a certain division already has the medical requests in place and already has those records. And then next up with the process map, we just want to develop a clear process map for the medical record retrieval. There's not a very clear one in place, so we want to make sure that's very precise so we don't lead to any mess ups that can lead to duplicate requests. And with this, the process map is very simply, we have inputs for every single step of a process, and we want to make sure that they're tracked to the output of that step. And then finally, along with those Microsoft Teams, just reduce the miscommunication across the company and streamline the whole process so we can eliminate those duplicates. And then further along on the improve phase, we're going to look at the contract language. So with this, we want to adapt the current contract language so that to provide clarity and reduce the number of duplicates. So along with this, like we talked earlier, it's very crucial that we collect the data on this to monitor the success of these modifications. And then finally, we just want to acknowledge the people who have helped us throughout this process. The whole Blue Cross Blue Shield team, specifically Zia Clark, Adria Jellum. They've really helped us a lot through this, getting us data, meeting with us weekly. And then finally, to our professor, Dr. Demian, in the whole course of 402 Project Management and Process Improvement. He's been with us day and night, really a big part of everything. So we thank those people. And that's the rest of our project, and we really thank you for your time.